Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we're discussing a watch originally launched back in 2005, and this is the first generation Lange Söhne Lange 1 time zone. It was redesigned for 2020. This is the original version of the watch, which at the time was built in what was considered to be the contemporary Grand Lange 1 case, so 41.9 millimeters. This is 41.9 millimeters in yellow gold with champagne dial. In terms of thickness, it measures 11.9 millimeters thick, and it is 49.9 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. The original Grand Lange 1 was in fact grand, and I could tell you that it probably suits a wrist of 16 centimeters circumference or larger. You might be able to get away with 15 centimeters if your wrist is totally flat across the top, but not if it's round. Taking a look down the barrel, you can see the lugs really are pushing out to the edge of my wrist, and that's also evident from the top, though the watch is thin and with a domed bezel, so it will slide underneath a dress cuff like a good dress watch should. We have a high-grade Lange strap, large rectangular scale alligator leather with symmetrical scales, always indicative of a very expensive cut. Medium brown, semi-gloss. We have a folded edge, a monotone stitch, calfskin on the bottom, and you can see this is a brand new Lange factory strap, no crimping, no gouging. If you've seen my Lange reviews before, you probably know I love this buckle and you can skip ahead, but if you're new to these reviews, let me tell you why this buckle is special. First, you can see it's nicely designed, the Lange logo and some faceting outboard, but then you can see how the bridge is elevated between the two stanchions or prongs on the side. This could just run straight across and they could be flush, but because the bridge is elevated, the strap allows for a little bit of countersink into the buckle, so that elevation of the bridge allows the strap to sit in the buckle and sit flatter when it's on the wrist. Now, there's also this little retaining bar, so if you're like me and you have a small wrist and you're going to use the smallest hole on the strap, or maybe even punch smaller holes, you know a tightly strapped strap tends to get pinned on the pin, and it can be difficult to extricate. Well, this little retaining bar prevents the strap from sinking too low on the pin, making it easier to remove if you do have a small wrist. The case is distinctive, as it has been since the original Lange 1 of 1994, so we have a sort of cylindrical vertical segment at center. We have a domed bezel that's a little bit more upright at its outer face. The case back is stepped in to make the watch read smaller and thinner when it's on the wrist. You can see the case back is also polished. We have these pushers, which feature a combination of polished and satinated highlights. And then we have lugs, which are dramatically notched and stepped out from the case band. They're polished on their tops and their side. And finally, we have the Lange branded crown. Now, the dial is not silver, it's champagne. It's got a little bit of a gold overtone, and you can see that it's a soft, frosted metallic. The dial's made of sterling silver. The hands, the indices, and the frame for the date are made of yellow gold 18 karat. So you have precious metal inside of precious metal. You have a panorama datum, or an outsize date that you can change with a pusher adjuster that gives you the same tactile pleasure as a fine column wheel chronograph, like, for example, Lange's own dotograph. It is a cross between a world time and a dual time. Now you can see two different dials here. We have the primary, and you can see there's a day-night indicator. The blue arc is night. And then there's a secondary, and you can see again we have a day-night indicator. Then we have this reference ring that contains 24 principal reference cities to represent 24 principal time zones. So the way we do this is we take this little gold index on the secondary time zone, and then we just put our current time zone of reference next to it. So you can see I've got Auckland, New Zealand, which I believe is the city of sails. There's also a power reserve indicator up-down in German, representing 72 hours of manual wind power reserve. And you can see we do have a hacking or stop seconds function for the small seconds. But back to the power reserve and the date indicator. We have twin barrels energizing the reserve. We have the double-digit date, and we have the secondary time zone. How this works. Well, you can see when I pull the crown out, I've synchronized these two. So they're indicating the same time as well as the same time of day. So you can see both, we're moving out of the blue zone, we're moving into the day, that's 6 a.m. But now I can also change my city of reference using this little trigger. And you can see now I'm going to change my city of reference to Denver, Colorado, where my sister lives. So now this little subdial, your secondary time zone, indicates the time in Denver. Now you might ask, what if I need to desynchronize them? Well, the way you do that is you actually hold down the button that changes the reference, and then you turn the crown in whichever direction you want. Just remember, it'll only ratchet in one direction. So if I want to desynchronize the primary time zone and hold the secondary wherever it is, I need to adjust counterclockwise to make that change. And as soon as I release that trigger, you can see they're going to move in sync again. So that's important to remember. Turning it all over, we have a movement. The L0311 manual wind twin barrels with an elaborate secondary mechanism that underpins the time zone function. Now what's really special here is you can see that we have this lovely floral motif that's been freehand engraved on the half bridge for that center wheel. You also have that freehand engraving on the balance cock, so you get twice the amount of artistry. You can see that there's also, I'll do my best to show this, but there's mirrored interior beveling within these wheels. They've actually been mirror beveled inside the spokes and the inner circumference of the wheel, which is super attention to detail. Also take note of the anglage or beveling on this half bridge itself. We also have German silver used for the bridges and plates, so nickel copper zinc, with the copper giving these bridges and plates their golden hue. You could see that the jewels are held by golden chaton cups and fixed in place by fire-blued screws, a nod to the way pocket watches were made in Glashütte in East Germany at Lange Söhne in the 19th and early 20th century before collectivization under the communists. And we actually have a combination of both black polished and blued screws. The watch does include both. The movement beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and with twin barrels, it has a more even torque release, so it doesn't surge and run fast when fully wound, and it doesn't lose a huge amount of time and balance amplitude after 18, 24, 36, 48 hours. Taking a quick look, you can see the cover of the escape wheel cock has been made of steel and black polished, and it actually has a sharp interior angle where those steel bevels meet, which is hugely impressive anglage work. You'll also note black polishing on the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism. And then engine turning on the base plate with stripes across the bridges. All of this 30 meters water resistant. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this champagne dialed yellow gold Lange Söhne Lange 1 time zone.